Welcome to the 4am Underground Podcast, episode number 1, with your hosts William and DNL, also known as 4am.
First podcast together, like first time talking on like this type of setting about music that we love the most. I think that's the coolest thing.
Absolutely. And it's crazy that to get to music, we went and tried so many other different things, from like running super far and long and trying, doing all the different types of like MMA, boxing type activities. And now where we've led us to music, which is really, really like a stark difference. It's like night and day. But martial arts and music are both arts in themselves. So it makes sense that
for sure, bro. Yeah, that's like everything we did had like a rhythm to it, right? And like music was always in like the background, whether we were working out together or running together or learning martial arts, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Like everything had like a soundtrack to it essentially. And then you get to the point where you're like, oh, I just want to make the soundtrack now. Like
exactly.
I don't want, like it doesn't, the activities don't matter as much, but like getting to like form that like the sonic, like whatever tone of your life is pretty crazy.
Exactly.
And so now we're here at music production and creation and DJing and all the things in between.
Exactly. There's at one point, like when we started, it's like making a CD to work out to was like the absolute thrill. And, LimeWire, when we, coming up in the, in the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, did LimeWire and Napster, all these different things. And then you'd wait forever just for one song,
Yeah, for sure.
So it's, music's played a huge role. And
music as a commodity, I feel like was a little bit different before, whereas like you didn't have access to what you wanted. You just got to kind of eat what you got served, whether it like be on the radio or like, and you really just, that's the main way, radio or CDs. You really couldn't fucking do anything else. But now you have unlimited availability to it. So that's why I feel like sometimes people don't think about what they listen to. They look like the algorithms pick, but for folks like us that like to make the playlist, we like to curate like our soundtrack to our life. It makes a lot more sense to do like the music production and DJ. That's why we got into it, because we wanted to curate. We wanted to curate experiences for ourselves, but then, only for other people too.
For sure. And I still remember the day that we even talked about or entertained the thought. I think it was like 2014, 2015. It's actually here in Austin. I think at Euphoria. It was like one of their inaugural years that they started that festival. And I remember being with you, like back where the campsite was. And we were just discussing, we were just listening to music. Oh, we love this music. And it kind of pause happened. And I'll never forget, like, we just kind of switched the topic. We were in a tent, like a blow up tent. And you're like, I think we can make this type of music. And, it felt the same way. And I was like, we could play just as good as music as the guys who were getting paid to come here. And, I remember the dream started then, and being able to that's when the calling really started. Like that little whisper, it was like, okay, you should try this, dabble with it, or, give it a try. So
yeah, it's a cool thing. Like when you're like a total amateur, like novice, and you have, I don't know what it is, you have this like spark that's like, I can do that.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you have no inclination to that. You have no proving grounds. You have nothing to like show for the fact, other than you just say like, I could do that, like the belief.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when you boil down like what you want to really do, it's like how much belief do you have in that thing, right? Like what's the most important part of anything? It's not like maybe like environmentally you have all these components or resources. It's how resourceful are you, and then how much belief do you have in yourself. And I think we just had so much belief of like, we love this music, we love being around this. How do we create this? I think you just always go through that phase where you're like going through life and you like these things, and there's probably an inflection point where you're like, I want to make this, I want to learn. Like you go to restaurants enough, like, damn, I love this dish so much, I'm gonna make this fucking ravioli, gnocchi, whatever it is. And so that's what we did. We just literally, it took a long time though. It was like a gestation period where we just kept listening to music and we didn't make the music. And I feel like you kicked that all for us because you got into DJing. What was like, again, that's the good Genesis story too on how that even started into DJing.
Yeah, I started in 2017 or so, 2018 with a good friend from home, my friend named Kenneth, and he kind of showed me techno for the first time, and we went to Nicole Madaber, and I think we met you there as well. We were all there. This was maybe not the same party, but we met
Kingdom.
I think it was at Kingdom. Yeah. It was at Kingdom. You came later for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And it was just, I'd never heard techno like that before.
For sure.
And the way she plays techno, and now she's evolved her sets to, playing with the V10 and these in the push with all these different controllers on deck. So she's evolved still from that day, which is not even that long ago.
Yeah.
Within 10 years. So it's just, seeing what you could do with techno, and the energy it created in a room, and with good techno. So I remember that was really kind of like the start of it all. But the genesis of really taking it seriously was in Denver. When I moved to Denver, so we could be closer and hang out, and so we could, go do mountain stuff and be outside and work out and all that good stuff. Continue to box, and it was really in Denver when I decided to choose music for myself for the first time. I went through a breakup at the time, and she did not like me DJing, and that's when I chose music for the first time. It chose me back. And I was like, when I told her that, hey, I have to move on, I have to choose music, I have to live my life. The next day, I got a text from Temple in Denver saying that I could open up for Gorgon City. It's a sold out show, unlimited guest list. And that was the day after I made that decision. So it was a very powerful day for me, helped me ground me in that decision that I made to could open the door to the next season of my life. And that's where it really started. I met the right people, learned from really cool people in Denver, the Ben Hooks, the Adams, you know what I mean? Like the people that just took me under their wing were so kind to me, let me use all their really good gear, fixed up my Ableton for me and put all these different plugins on for me and just really just set me up for success. And that's really where it started. It was just that moment, choosing music, choosing the love I had for it and the passion I had for this. But it also started the kickstarted my decision to learn how to make music, because there's only a point, I felt like there was a point when you only download so many songs and it's not really your song, and you see things like gatekeeping songs and I'm like, this is silly. I just need to make my own music. Yeah, I need to get out of that kind of like percentile, so to speak, of just downloading music. I need to follow the making music. So yeah, I started in Denver, bro, and that was really crazy to learn there and to take it to the next level.
It's funny how like DJing is like a gateway instrument for a lot of people, like that don't have like classically trained. Maybe they play a little bit of music in high school or junior high or whatever, and then they just like want to play music, and it's like the lowest barrier entry is it gets you like the itch to be like, wait, what's going on here right now? Like, why does this sound good when I do this? But then, like you said, you get to a point where you can't just, you want to download stuff, you want to make it, and you like start playing the songs, you're like, oh, I wish this had this, and or I like when I mix this bass with that song, and you're like, wait, like you are essentially creating something new every time you DJ when you like multi-layer, like mix tracks. But then you can only do so much of that, and you're like, all right, like let me make something. But that, even then, like it's a scary jump going from like making no music to like DJing, right? Because you get to learn like a skill of like that whole art form and like being the party, which is like a whole different thing. Which you make playlists, and you fucking, when you're at a house with somebody and all your friends, like you're trying to like take over the CD player and then
the aux cord,
like, oh, I got this song next, and so you're like playing around with it. But then when you go from that to music production, is probably the scariest jump ever, because you have like no understanding of what's going on. You have to like learn how to do music theory. You have to learn like operating system. You have to do all these things just for you to make shitty music at the beginning, and being like, wow, this is really hard. Like then you're like, hold on. Then when you go back to that, like we can do this moment where you're younger, you kind of like go second guess yourself and like, whoa, like this is not as easy as it actually looks to like make a song like that. So I mean, you're really good at that, about like getting people that have done what you want to do and then learning from them and like figuring out, how do I do this? You're kind of a master at learning from others and getting mentors and teachers. Yeah, I've
been very grateful to have had some amazing mentors. Before music, I've been in business, and I chose business and to pursue business online and e-commerce. And one thing that I learned in business is that, through amazing people like Tony Robbins, is modeling people. We live in an era where you can consult with people, you can get coaches, a lot of people talk, I think it was Alex Mosley talked about this, and it was amazing, that like Warren Buffett didn't have Warren Buffett. You know what I mean? He had his, all these guys coming up didn't have mentors, and they had to kind of learn the hard way. But like you have people out there willing to teach you and save you scars. And I felt like that was such a hack. I mean, you have to invest in yourself, and you have to get over the hurdle of like, hey, I have to pay a lot of money for this, but that's like where the growth happens. And I'm super grateful to have had a lot of incredible mentors like in this music journey already. And it's so early on. I feel like just scratching the surface, like I'm barely starting, and I've already had some incredible mentors. And I'm looking forward to like learning more from other people that I've never learned from. And I think that's the key, is to just be always open to learning, and to be humble to the people who came before you who've been doing it and just standing on the shoulders of giants, like, giving them their credit and listening. I think a lot, and I've seen a lot in art. It's like people don't want to listen. People don't want to take advice. It's hard to take advice. And I think egos can get in the way. But I think if people can really ask for help, especially men, like all the people ask for help, learn from the best who have done it and who've already been there doing what you want to do. Like if you want to tour, learn from someone who's toured and has been there, done that. If you want to get signed, learn from someone who's been signed, right? So I think that's just an easy, simple life hack for anybody, really.
Yeah.
Not just musicians, just to like ask for help and be willing to invest in yourself if it costs. I mean, the return on this education is like it's priceless.
Yeah, because the more you invest in yourself, the more other people will invest in you.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. Like you have to be vulnerable enough to know, I don't have all the answers right now. Like, how do I figure this out? Like you literally went through school with teachers the whole time. Like they don't just like pile a whole bunch of kids in a class and like let them figure it out on their own. Like they're gonna give you some like guidance, but there's not that much guidance in like the music space, it seems like, especially like the electronic music, which is pretty new as it relates to like all the instruments and all the different like genres of music that are out there. It's by far like probably the easiest one to flip and turn into like a career or do something, just because like the technical skills that it takes. But you still need to like have some guidance there and figure out, what do I want to do for one, but then how am I gonna figure it out? And it's hard because you get a mentor and you could like, you want to get someone that has like a similar sound and like kind of doing the same things that you want to do, but then you also want to be unique. So balancing that, like, I can reference a song and like make one just like it, but I don't want to make the exact same song twice. That's not like, not to say anything's original, but you want to make your own version of something. And I think that's when we make music, we have to toe that line of like, okay, it's in this genre, but it's something, our sound is like unique, which you just learn from other people and creating in volume.
For sure, absolutely. And some people will go as far as not even listening to the music they make when they're, out of the studio. I think Melee talks about this on like Will Clark podcast. It was really cool how like he has a certain sound and he doesn't want to jeopardize it by listening to anybody else's music ever. And I think that was a cool take, about like staying true to his sound and what makes him him. Yeah. Right. So but at the end of the day, I think if you're going to start and being able to like commit and invest in yourself to begin is crucial. Buy the courses, actually take the courses, actually do the homework within the courses and seek feedback, seek the advice and be willing to take constructive criticism, as an adult, as a grown person. And I think that will help you again in every other area of your life too, being able to, if you can't take constructive criticism at your craft, you're going to become really complacent and maybe a little delusional, and you're never going to really get better, right? You'll never really get better. Like, you'll get to be right for whatever reason you want to be right for, but you'll never really get the exponential growth and the ability to see your full potential. So I think that's like huge at the beginning, because there is YouTube University, and I definitely encourage that. But at the end of the day, there's so much information out there. Analysis paralysis, being overloaded, right? Like if you, like it does help us, having like a plan or a certain sort of structure that allows you to grow, that was designed for you to grow and expand. Shout out to Expansive Academy, John, that allows you to expand, and it's by the structure, right? It's not just as I can make a song and just go at it willy nilly. It's like, can I have a structure, the formula that I can repeat over and over? Because at the professional level, for what I see, it's like about making music fast, making a lot of music really fast. And that's another thing I learned through Will Darling. Will Darling, EDM tips, another great course for those like beginning. And it's about making music fast, and how can I create a system to make music fast? Because so much music, as you've shared with me, that's coming out every single day. It's like, how do you compete with that? Is you have to be able to make the same amount of music as fast. So and then playing shows, having unreleased music to play at shows and make your sets unique.
I think the body of work is like makes so much difference, because like, before in music, that was really, really important to have like a really solid body of work to like put together albums that were like cohesive and they told a story. It's a different era now, so it's just a lot of singles. So there's not as much storytelling that goes on in like multiple tracks out of time, but you still have to like create in like the same type of volume. Like you're still having to put out a lot of music because you're just getting practice and getting to like fuck up and mess up and figure out, man, like this, why does this sound good? And you'll never know unless you just make those songs, so many different types of songs or different genres. Like my most controversial, I feel like, take is like, everybody's like, make one genre of music. And like, I'm like, yeah, but no, because I want to like make whatever I'm capturing that day. Like some days I feel a little bit different. So I want to, you know, transmute that through this type of song, a techno song. If I feel a little bit happier, I want to make like a house song. And I think that's what is so difficult about music is like, you kind of be you. Like, what do you love? How are you feeling that day? Like taking those into account, but then still getting to work and like still the task at hand is working at this. So you have to like kind of like sift through all this nonsense to get through like what you want to do. And if it's what you want to do is make music, then make music, and whatever it comes out to be, then awesome. And then you fine tune all the little like technical details. But that's, I feel like, was one of the hardest parts. It's just, I told someone a long time ago, it's like making music, like people are like, oh, how do you not get so attached to it? Or how do you still get so like, you know, tense on it? I'm like, dude, it's like making a sandwich. Like you're going to make it, you're going to eat it, and you're going to move on to like the next thing. So like, as much as I like to do food analogies, it's not that important. Like, hey, like you make it. And if it's really good, then you like it. You're like, oh man, that's sick. But you're not tied. You're not like a really good sandwich maker. Or like you make a shitty sandwich, like it's whatever. So you just keep making it. And if it makes you happy, then keep making it. If you want to make something else, then go make something else. And we all get really tight and tense too fast. And I feel like art and music is best whenever things are really relaxed and loose and realistically very playful. And you're almost just like messing around the whole time just to figure out, like, does this really sound good? As opposed to like, I need to make this type of bass sound. If I'm not making this bass sound, I'm a failure. Or like, then it messes up the next section of the song. And you just almost like compound effects over and over as you make like each section of song.
Yeah, absolutely. That inner dialogue that you first have to deal with when you start making music is a big deal. Being able to calm that inner voice down that may want to be a little bit negative, condescending. Well, there's a learning curve. You know, you've never done this before. Why would you be good?
Yeah.
Why would you ever be good at something you've never done before?
Sure.
We all have sounds in our head. We all hear things. But does that mean we have the technical ability to execute on that? Not quite. So I think having the grace with ourselves when we first beginning, okay, cool. This is another thing I take from, you know, business in Hormozi Nation is like the first 20 hours, is get to the first 20 hours of whatever it is you're trying to do. And you'll realize that you'll get much better. And it's the truth. I've done it with, you know, getting into new types of marketing, and for my e-commerce business, like I've just literally logged the first 20 hours. And by that 20th hour, I felt really confident. I felt in a flow. I felt good. I felt like this is easy, right? There's a big shift. I was supposed to avoiding the first hour or the first 5 hours or whatever the case may be when you first begin. But it's having a little bit more grace with yourself, having a nicer talk with yourself internally, giving yourself credit. Hey, I showed up, I did this, I made a loop, or hey, I did really good at sound design. I picked all the right sounds together, because that's a huge part too, right? You may not get the mix down, but man, I could pick sounds together. I know that these all sound good together. I know they're all cohesive and they're relevant, and they make one good story, right? They're not like 3 or 4 stories at once, right? This all goes apart. So like, I think being able to like have, you know, maybe a little moment with yourself before you go into the studio, go on a walk. I know it's like some stuff that we love to do is go on a walk, go on a sauna, you want to change your state, changing your state, listen to something positive, you know. You have to always stand guard at the door of your mind, which is another amazing thing I learned in business from, like, you know, studying Jim Rohn. Just really guard what you're putting in your mind. Fill your mind up with really, really positive things before you get into the studio. Like that's really helped, you know, me personally. Like before I step in, I listen to Bob Proctor. I'll listen to someone really, really inspirational that that'll help put me in the right state to be in the studio, right? And you know, anything that happens in the studio, it just happens. Like I'm cool. I'm not attached to the session. I may have been a bad session on paper, but like I still got the time and the reps in, and that's what I think people. This is a long game. Music, you'll never. I think you'll get to be really great, but you'll never perfect it. There's always something to learn. You will always grow, right? And I think that's what I love about it so much, is that like that's continual growth. Like you may become a master, but you will never master it. Like you to an extent, because there's always something new to learn. There's always a new sound to make. There's, you know, you can always challenge yourself if you look for the challenge. You know, there's another level if you're looking for it. So, I think that's a great place for artists to start. Like just speaking from experience, going through a lot of different courses is just, you know, don't compare yourself, and, you know, feed yourself some good stuff before you get in there. Feed yourself.
It's unfortunate at times how fast like everything is in life now, where as it relates to like how you make music and how people acquire wealth and how like you learn this skill, like everything is just sped up. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that needs to happen in like the music making process. I feel like sometimes I'll make songs really, really fast and they work out really well, and that makes me feel really, really good. Other times it'll take really long to just make like a loop or just to play around with like sound design. So to your point, good or bad session on paper, but it's like realistically when you go in and you're like, we're just gonna play around. We're gonna see what happens. We're gonna work on this song and see if we have a good time, as opposed to like have strict guidelines that we're doing this. I think that's like the most fun part. And it always seems like every time you come in with like, I gotta do X, this, and this in like a creative space, it just makes it so much more mundane and like strategic and tactical, which for me, music making is just like a really, really creative hobby that's just like very abstract art. Like it's just whatever's gonna pop up in that session will pop up, and whatever gets created, and it's neither good nor bad. Whether you create absolutely nothing at all and you just play around with sounds. I feel like I've been trying to lean into that more with just listening to something, gathering music, like gathering samples, like creating sounds in a synth. Like that all is like the most invaluable time. Yeah, you can't necessarily show much for it, but realistically, those are the building blocks of whatever you're creating. If you want to fast track and make like a full song and you're ill prepared or ill equipped, like it probably will sound a little shaky. Which is just how you do like anything else. So taking a lot of time and care and grace with yourself to even just gather music, or like even make a 16-bar loop, or go play around with the tools that you have. Just see what it feels like just to play a little bit and mess around, as opposed to try to jump and be like, yo, we're making this type of song like right now because I heard it the other day. And I don't necessarily listen to a lot of like electronic music outside of the studio, because I feel like you can only listen to so much of one type of music where you're just like, I do not want to hear this anymore. Like it's all the same. Like it's all kind of similar like patterns and structure, and it's like really nice. I don't know if you do this, but it sounds like you do. Really nice to listen to like stuff that's like way out there. Like you either listen to like a soundtrack, like a movie score, you listen to people like talking like ambient sounds, like getting inspiration from other genres that have no similarities other than it's just music is so helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives your like just your mind a rest from the same 4 to the floor pattern. You may take an idea. You learn from all music, right? It doesn't matter if it's super classical Beethoven, right? Or if you're listening to some oldies Motown, right? Like they're all you can learn something from everything. So I think that's also another great point, is to allow yourself to listen to other music that you're not making. Right? Give yourself a break. You might get inspired by other music, right? That allows you to be in your heart and not in your head when you go to the studio the next time. Because I think that's a huge battle, is like being so in my head, like everything, not allowing things to flow. And I think that's one thing I definitely learned from you. Just painting when we live in Denver, is that like there's not a lot of thinking going on. It was just a lot of feeling, and you could see that. And I think that's what has helped me a lot with music, making music with you specifically, is just being able to not attach to any sound. Like I can easily, if I don't like the sound, okay, on to the next one. It's not a big deal. And again, I'm not attached to anything in that session. You know, I'm going to come back on a fresh ear and listen to it again. I may not touch it for a week or two, and I come back, listen to it again, have a whole new idea. So again, not being attached to a session, really, not letting a session like destroy your next session and the future sessions. It's kind of like I learned this in golf. Like you have a bad hole, you leave that hole behind, and you're on to the next hole, and you have a new set. You know, you're at 0, right? You can't do anything about the double or triple or quadruple book you made on the previous hole. Like you have to just have a really, really bad short-term memory and move forward, right? And like even if you just show up and all you could do again was sound design, you work on chords for 2 hours, or you listen to hi-hats for 2 hours. That's part of the process. You know what a good hi-hat sounds like now. Or you spend 2 hours looking for a clap, 3 hours looking for a clap. It's like, that's part of the process. Like there's no shortcuts in this. You may have to look for 3 hours for a clap, or you end up layering them for 3 hours, whatever, when you're starting. That's part of it. And just knowing that your experience points are going up, right? The entire time. And you don't have to judge yourself for not having a full idea. You got a good clap in, you got a good hi-hat in, and like be able to celebrate that, celebrate the little shit. Like you don't have to, number one, beat pour off rip every single time. Like it doesn't happen. You're human. So
Sure.
I celebrate the little things within the projects you're doing, because that will help create the momentum. I think it's helped me create momentum.
Yeah.
And just be able to like make a ton of music, forget that I even made one song or another song. Wait, what song was that again? So I think that's been huge, celebrating the little wins within, you know, within the projects you are in. And I think that's that's huge at the beginning. Yeah. That's like probably one of the things that's helped me the most is just celebrating little wins.
Yeah. And I think another big thing that it brings to mind for me is like, why are you doing this? And so many times I'm like, I need to make this type of song. I want to make this type of this. I need it. You know, so like outcome focused and like destination focused, you miss on all the middle parts. And then after the fact, you realize so many times, like the best part about making the song is not like the song once it's done. Like once it's done, you can't do anything. Like it's already over. Like you've already got to the destination. Like so much of like visiting some place you've never been to is like, you don't know what it's like when you're there. Once you're there, like, yeah, it's amazing, but like the allure is gone. Like that like mystique around something. And then you realize that like the fun part is making music. Yeah. And all of making music is fun in that you pick a hi-hat for, you know what I mean? Like you do all the little things, and that should like really invigorate you or make you really, really excited. And if it doesn't, then think about what part of music making does make you excited. Like what are the components that you like? And I think for us, like gelling together, because we both make music separately, and coming together to make music is another like learning lesson, and being like, okay, what do we both like to do? And what does the other one, what are we really good at? How do we blend that together and be like, oh, okay, like I like doing this. So like, it's going to bring me more joy if I like can, you know, come in with a project and like play around with these types of sounds. And then I have like, okay, Will, what do you think would sound really good in this environment? And like with this setting based on what I do, it's vice versa when you come with me with ideas, and it makes it more fun that way, because then you can really just focus on the stuff that you love. And that's what like being a duo is so sick, because you're like, you got someone's covering your back the whole time, and they're able to show you what you couldn't see, or like hear something that you couldn't hear. And that's why I feel like it's a band, bro. Like no, it's gonna be really hard for one artist to be as powerful as like an orchestra, because there's so many people, there's so many humans, there's so many souls playing, and that's why that shit's so powerful. Because it's not one person, so it's a collective of people, which for electronic music is almost the opposite, because you can do everything as one person. Like you are literally like the composer the whole time, but you want more different sounds, different ideas, and I think that's what really helps us make music and make it sound a little bit different than what we do individually, because we're molding both of what the other one can't hear and can't do.
True, absolutely. And I think like on a skill level too, what's been really helpful with us working together is the fact we're complementary in terms of our skill set. Like, and that's again another business analogy. It's like you get into business with someone, you want to have complementary skill sets. You just don't both want to love the same business, right? You have a certain set of skills. I have a certain set of skills, you know, and we took a long time to learn them, and now we get to come together and make those skills build something, you know, meaningful, and then also from like a workflow standpoint, like you're not going to be able to collaborate well with everybody. You're going to be able to collaborate well with the, you know, certain people super well, like we do, and everything in between. But like the complementary skill set is really, I think, what's is something to consider when you trying to like make a duo with someone. I think having a complementary skill set, being able to do the same amount of work, and being able to, you know, and that's what I love about us. It literally feels like such a team effort. Like no one's doing more than the other, right? And it's like, oh, this is beautiful, like synergy of just being able to like have complementary skill sets and make something that's truly unique that you will never find anywhere else. So that's like, that's also, I think, part of the fun of it. It's like, like what are we gonna make today? Like that's why there should be no pressure going into the studio, because you don't know what you're gonna make. It's so exciting. It's like the best gift and surprise. I don't know if you like gifts or surprises. Like if you love surprises, it's like one of the best surprises and one of the best gifts you could have, and that you get, you know, from, you know, just being in your heart, you know, connected to, you know, something greater than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And being able to make it from a place of love, in a place of non-judgment, right? Like that's when you make your best music, when it's love and non-judgment. So like, and then being able to do that with somebody else, another heart, another soul that complements you. I think that you set yourself up for a high amount of success and a pure fulfillment and joy by doing that. So if you're considering a duo, like, do you have complementary skill sets? Can I learn from you? Can you learn from me? That ebb and flow is, again, it's super powerful. And something that I'm super grateful for that I get to do with you. And like, but, you know, there's moments and times when we're in the studio and we're connecting and we make something, you write like a dope melody and we finish stuff and we end the session. It's like, whoa, it was like spiritual in a sense, right? It was like definitely something that was, it just moved my core, my soul. And it's like, okay, cool. This feels right. That's when you know, like, okay, cool. This makes sense. You know what I mean? That makes sense that when you feel a certain way that you can almost not comprehend, other than it's just like bliss.
Yeah.
So like
you can make a song, but then you can like feel when you made a song. You're like, oh man, like this feels like a different way. You'll make all these different songs, but there's some that you're like emotionally and spiritually like tied in with a little bit more. And whenever you're working with someone in the studio, like there's another person that like genuinely cares. And I think so much of electronic music does get very robotic and harsh and like cold, essentially, because there's a lot of sounds that are, yeah, they're from someone originally, but you're just playing around with them and there's not like a real instrumentation like happening. So you miss a lot of that. And so for when you're working, you're trying to make it as like real as possible. You're trying to bring something, I always think about it, you're trying to bring something to life. Like what are you bringing? What idea or concept? I feel like I have the most fun sometimes when I have like an idea in my head, like I kind of want to make a song that makes me think of this, or like I have an image in my mind. It's like I have like a horse running through like like a desert, and it's like, what does that sound like? And then you like put like tones to it, and I think that's always a fun part to like visualize what you want from it, and maybe even like working backwards, because it is very intimidating, as you know, to go into the studio and maybe not have any idea whatsoever, and you're like, what do I do? You know what I mean? And have like maybe just a little hint of like texture there, like, oh, I have this like one sound I made from a couple sessions ago. It's like, let's turn this into a song. Or maybe you go even somewhere and you go get Airbnb and you're like, what is this Airbnb making me feel like creating? And I think that's why it's so helpful to create in like different environments and get out there in the world and experience stuff. And you could just stay in the lab and just cook all day.
Yeah.
But like you're gonna lose touch with what makes you a person, which is being out in the world, connecting with other people, listening to other sounds, right? When we put our headphones in, we're like blocking ourselves out from like everything that the world or the universe is presenting to us. Like some of the best ideas I've gotten are from me, no headphones in, just like on a walk, and I hear someone playing some song that I wouldn't have played and be like, oh my God. And then you get that spark and that turns into an idea, and then you flip that song and make it really quick because you were like listening. I think that's why music is so fun, because it really forces you to be present. And you don't have to be, but if you are, the experience is far more gratifying and more fulfilling when you're just there with all those sounds in you and your mind, and you're like on a beach, and you're like, you don't know what the sandcastle is gonna look like, but you know it's gonna wash away. So the whole enjoyment of it is just making it, and then once it's done, you're like, okay, we're good now. We're taking that like playful mentality into the studio, as I think what's allowed us to have so much fun, and that's at the core of it. Like if you're having fun, you'll probably want to keep doing it.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. If you're having fun, you're going to want to invest in yourself more. You're going to learn more. You're going to get more curious if you're fun. And I think you make such a good point of like, you know, some of the best ideas you've had have been in like silence on walks. You know, take that walk, take a break, leave that studio session behind. Don't go criticize your mix while walking, right?
Yeah.
Just like take a break, take a full break. And again, just be present in the stillness, right? You're walking, next thing you know, some car's blaring some random song, and oh man, I want to remix that. That's from like 1990 something.
Yeah.
It's from the early 2000s. Well, that would make sense on a club track, right? And you would never have that if you're maybe putting your headphones in, listening to a mix you're unhappy with, or just, you know, kind of beating yourself up about the session. It's just like knowing that if you didn't create anything that you love that session, you still put in the time that was required. You're still paying the dues. You know, that's you know, that's what you have to pay. Everyone does it. Everyone makes weird things when they first start.
Yeah.
Everyone has shitty mixes. Everyone gets confused with sound selection, sound design, and leveling, compression. The list goes on. Everyone is going to struggle with that. Everyone takes a while to like for that light bulb to go off.
Yeah.
Right. And the only way they get there is through a lot of time and effort and potentially investing in themselves, right? Like getting the courses, doing the courses. So again, there's no shortcut in music. I think you can't shortcut your ear. It is literally impossible to shortcut your ear. There's no Game Shark that you can use to like expedite the fine tuning of your ear.
Yeah.
Like you have to just be in the DAW. You have to be in the studio. You have to listen and reference a bunch of tracks. And there's no replacement of that. You have to do things like sound gym and whatnot, right? To really hear certain frequencies, right? And that's just with reps, right? Even if there's a day where you maybe not feeling creative, go listen to sound gym, right? Go do something that's going to progress your ear, right? You may not feeling super creative, but like there's ways to progress your ear. There's ways to get better. Watch videos, watch courses. Just because you don't feel like making music that day doesn't mean like you can't still get that time in doing other things. So like just know that both are part of the process, and it's time well spent, whether you're, you know, creating music or learning. You know what I mean? You have to make time for both.
Yeah.
So like
super valuable, because I feel like there's either two things you could do. You can either consume or you can create. And if you kind of bounce back and forth, you're getting the best of both. And then sometimes, as we all do, we get addicted to one thing that gives us like a dopamine hit. And you're like, oh my God, when I create music, it makes me feel so good. So I'm just going to create a lot of music. And then you just spam that creation button so much that it stops to like really work. And you're like, wait, why am I just doing this all the time? I have to actually consume a little bit, whether it be consuming silence, or you could consume another genre, or you could go learn something. You know, you have to like take in some of that to then like transmute, go through to then output it. And sometimes I do feel like I get on this creation bug and kick, and I'm like, I'm zapping. There's nothing there. Like I'm like, there's nothing. There's no ideas. I'm like, I don't really want to do anything right now. I'm forcing it, and I'm like, well, wait, let me just take a step back and go like learn something about some genre, or go watch a documentary or a movie, or go for a walk, or you know, like just do something to like intake and like replenish yourself. Because I do feel like that process is so invigorating at first. When you first break through to like, oh wow, I can make like a coherent like song that has an idea and like it came from my mind, and you're like, oh my God, I'm like an alchemist, like I'm so powerful. And then all you do is just do that, but you're zapping your energy bar goes down over time. And so you're like, what are the things that replenish me? And it's there's a lot, but it's like sleep and good food, and like you said, taking care of yourself, go for a walk, sauna, like go learn something, like just slow it down. We're not built to just go all out all the time, create. There has to be some gestation period, like I've opened everything up with. It has to be kind of like molding. You can't see anything happening. Nothing's happened, like an egg from day 1 to day like whatever 5. Like there's no change externally, but inside there's a lot going on. And it's the same with like an artist. You could be learning, and it just take a little bit of time, and then boom, it explodes, and you break through into something that you're like, wow, I didn't even know that was in there. But that's just that cycle over and over again of like highs in creation, like lows in creation. But it's really highs in creation, highs in consumption. And you just keep going. I'm going to create, I'm going to consume. I'm going to create, I'm going to consume. So you're expanding every single time. But we sometimes think of it as like, oh, I'm not making anything right now. Like, oh, I'm not worth anything, which is not it. You're just a person like making music, and that's it.
True, absolutely. And if you're creating that, if you can take those off days and you can create some sort of like positive like connotation with an off day, right? Like I'm still growing in this off day. It's an off day from the studio, right? And some of those days are some of the best days well spent. Even if you're not doing anything music, those are the best days. You do need rest, no matter what. Like whether like you're training for a marathon or you're training for a fight, right? If you're training to be the best possible producer, you need rest in some way, shape, or form, and you get to define what that rest looks like. Like rest to me is different to rest for somebody else. Rest maybe take the whole day off.
Yeah.
Rest to me is like, I'm gonna watch some tutorials. Yeah. You know, like, I'm gonna watch some tutorials. I'm gonna write some stuff down. I'm gonna try some new stuff. That's my off day. I feel good, but I don't have to sit at the DAW for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, right? Like it's not. That's not what that day looks like for me. And you get to again create that as a creator. See what works best for yourself. Taking care of your mind and body, soul, whatever way that looks for you is important too, because you are a human animal still at the end of the day. Like, yeah, we're an artist, but again, in human animal form.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, how can we optimize our body too, and take care of ourselves, and and have a balance of things in our life that make us feel whole, and that also allow us to have other areas of our life that are good too, because like that'll leap that'll seep into your music, you know what I mean, too, as well. So yeah, absolutely. So
I think through more life experiences, your music becomes more like not advanced, but just textured and layered and more rich and more full, because you've gone through more things outside of music, whether you like fall in love or you go travel or you go meet somebody, you start a new job or whatever. Like all those things are ultimately going to transmit, because you're, again, just like a vessel, and whatever you're getting fed, just kind of going through you. So if you're not really engaged in like the world around you, which happens a lot, I would imagine, to producers, you just want to do the thing over and over again. It's fun to get a lot of those reps in technically, but if you're not out there experiencing the world, then you'll never hear some random street performer and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that that existed. I'm gonna go record. Let me go field record for a second and get some of those sounds. Like some of the best sounds are the ones out in the real world, and you flip those and turn them into, you put them into a song, and it gives you that lifelike, real-like texture. I think I love adding like ambient coffee shop sounds into like deep house songs. I think that shit's so cool, like, because it puts the person in like it's there in the background, but they don't know why they feel like there's something around them, like people, and like a little bit buzzy, and it's stuff that you can't even tell sometimes, but you would never know that unless you were like sitting at a coffee shop being like, wow, this is a cool sound right now, because we're so dialed in on something. Usually, I think once I started unplugging and just listening to like my surroundings, you're like, wow, this shit sounds really nice. Like the soundtrack of life is pretty cool, even when you're not, you know, listening to like a curated sound or those things. That's why I'm a really big proponent of just like getting out of the studio and like and not getting upset at yourself that you're not creating for like stretches of time. Like you're still intaking, you're still getting better. Just enjoy. So much of it is just how much can I enjoy of life, of like music production. And if you just let it be a little bit more and go experience nature outside, you go for a walk, you listen to some Beethoven, you go watch a movie, like when you're really there and present, you're gathering information, you're consuming to then throw into your creation afterwards. But what are your favorite sounds? That's all I wanted to, like, what are your favorite, like what right now in like music, maybe for you, like what are some of your favorite sounds, instruments, like what? Yeah, no, it's an intense question because all sounds, but
loaded for sure. You're going for days about this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think some of my favorite sounds right now are probably coming from like probably like the Moog Sub 37. That's kind of fairly new to me. Loving those. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the Korg Mini-Log. Again, I feel like a lot of people have that in their studio. It's one of the first synths people get, whether it's the full synthesizer. Or the other part where it's just the different tack release settings and stuff only, no keys. But I love those two because you can create so much with them. You can upload new patches, new sounds, and new presets. So like it's literally endless with the way you can shape it. Loving those a bunch. That's what I use a lot. But in terms of sound, like I really love the deep tech minimal sounds in general. Like the Rhodes are really nice and warm. The pianos are really amazing. But I would say like just the deep tech sound is very just relaxed, like water to me. It feels like water. It's very incredible groove. So that minimal deep tech sound, which is fairly new-ish, but it started to become way more popular. It's just something I really love outside of like, you know, the melodic stuff, which is, you know, Juna Deep, you know, that type of sound has been around for quite some time. But like this new minimal kind of like new age deep house is like I really love it. It's perfect. Yeah. It's, I feel, it's what I tend to, you know, lean in towards more when I'm sitting down and making a song. Like I want to make more like, you know, Coulter music, or AKA DJ OKO. I don't know how you say that. Djoko? Something like that. Coulter, like that sound, Prunk from PIV. Stussy. All those guys doing a fantastic job. Max Chapman's. But yeah, that's one of my favorite sounds right now. But still learning a lot about them. But at the same time, like those are definitely my go-to. How about yourself? What do you like liking most these days?
Yeah, I feel like I've been tending toward like that M1 organ sound a lot, like that 90s like that piano-y sound for like classic like deep house and house back in the day. That's always been a really like staple. I feel like I'm gonna probably try to fit that in some way in a song, just because I like how that sounds. And then a ton of like a lot of the dubbier stuff. So like big like dubby like chords, like, and I also think of it in like an Aqua sense, right, where it's very fluid. It's like a blue, purple, like turquoise type of color, and it just gives me a sense of like you're fluid, you're moving. It's not as like jagged and abrupt as like a lot of like the darker techno stuff that I like to make too, but then also hear a lot of as well. It's a little bit more like relaxing. You're thinking beach, you're thinking middle of the day, you're at a pool, like you're a little bit flowier in that sense. And so I think a lot of it is like that dubbier type of like synth sound for the most part, like the Rhodes, like stuff from back then is really, really nice. As it relates to like music, like composing, like film stuff, I feel like just heavy drones, like some big cello, like really low, like 808 bass, like really, really big into like those type of like sounds. And I think Deep Tech Minimal too, it's fantastic because I feel like for me it's really stripped down, and so much of music is just like there's just a lot going on right now, and it just like almost like throws me off a little bit of how like what I say, like abrasive, or like it's really like intrusive. And I want music to be a little bit more flowy, because we just keep pushing. And now techno's at like 150, 170. Like it's fucking crazy. Like before 120 used to be like really fast. And now like 120 is actually kind of slow. And that's just crazy to me. I make a lot of shit at like 130 for the most part. We make a lot of stuff at 128, 130. And I think a lot of Deep Tech Minimal, you could push the speed of a track up, but then not make it really, really fast and rhythmic with all these synths. You can have more stabs. You can have more space in the song. It also helps you mixing other songs in too, because as you know, like a lot of electronic music is meant to stack on top of each other. And like that's the art of it, like being able to create a track that plays well with other tracks. And it's not just this fucking stacked song that like is too big body for everybody and you can't mix in with it, you can't add to it. You want, for me at least, to leave a little bit of gaps in space for like other mixing or other vocals to come in. I think I like that stripped down sound a little bit more. And so I think Deep Tech Minimal, that W, those big chords, the big spaced out, like not 16th note everything. That's what I like the most.
Yeah. And that's another amazing point. Like I love the stripped down part of it as well. It gets you to like really fine tune each instrument that you're using in the track. Like they really has to be on point, because there's nothing masking it or covering up or saving it, right? Or blocking for it, pulling from the line, so to speak. Like you have to really like fine tune each and every single instrument. And I think that's a really fun part of like the really stripped back songs. Like it's really, really picking the right sounds. And in Deep Tech, how beautiful the melodies work together. That's one of my favorite parts, is how the melodics work. And the sound of the melodics, or the way they work with each other, is just is my favorite. So, but yeah, I like the stripped back down part too, because it just gets me to like perfect that song in a different way.
Yeah.
Versus let me just throw 100 tracks into this one track. Some main stage tech house track, 100 tracks or something, all these different effects and different fills, and which is cool and stuff. But like when I think Deep Tech Minimal, I think like 10-hour party. I think I could start at like 9 a.m. and go to 9 p.m. and go to 7 a.m.
Exactly.
That's why I think Deep Tech Minimal is so incredible, because when I think of a rave scene, that's what I think about. Like the old school rave scene where it was house and techno, and it was dependent on the hour of the night what the people were playing. So I feel like there can be some darker, minimal deep tech. There's, and some lighter, really, really chill, like cafe racer, as you would say. Like cafe racer style stuff you can listen to earlier in the night, and great stuff for the morning time too. Like the stuff we've made, it sounds great when you play it in the morning. Yeah. So like, that's why I also love the versatility of the minimal deep tech. Is just, I feel like I can listen to it for a long time. I can only listen to so much main stage tech house.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean, right? But I feel like I could stay at a deep tech minimal stage or area for an entire party.
Yeah, exactly.
And be really happy.
Sure.
And feel like I get a full experience. Yeah. So like it's definitely been one of my favorites, no doubt.
No, for sure. It's like that's another big thing too. When you're making the music, you're going to be listening to it a lot longer than 3, 5, 6 minutes, right? You're listening to literally that idea for like up to hours, days, 24 hours. Some people, months at a time, they listen to the same song. You know what I mean? Like they dedicate so much time to crafting this. So it's like, realistically, you got to like love what you're listening to and really enjoy that sound. I think that is a really hard part early on, to figure out like what genre do I really want to make right now. And it is going to change over time, and you're going to make all different types of genres, but realistically, like what's the music that you want to listen to, for the next 10 hours or up to, a good chunk of time, because you'll probably be doing that. And you don't want to get sick of something and you're like, get this out of here. And I feel like I do that a lot with techno, where I love to make techno, but I don't love to listen to techno for that long. And so it's like, I have like 2 hours I can work on this like techno track, but if not, I gotta pan out to like something a little bit more pleasing and fun. I do also agree with you. Deep Tech Minimal is that like just ultimate genre for us, because it's so fun. It could be dark, it could be light. It's not like really crazy busy with like a traditional like pop vocal like chorus structure. you get a lot. You can get a lot in with that genre, and I think it's getting more popular here. But it's already, overseas. It's already they already know.
Yeah, groove is king, and then that genre, the groove is phenomenal. It's just so many good drums. There's so many good artists doing a fantastic job with their drums, and and that's the key to a dance track, right? You want people to move and shake.
Yeah.
So groove will always be king, and that's what that genre reminds me of, is groove being king. Because there's a lot of amazing music. Like I love like the melodic house and techno stuff. Again, like I mentioned, the Anjunas, even like your Tale of Us, right? Like the modern trance, right? Where there's not like a ton of drums in that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of big atmospheres, a ton of melodies. There's really no space for a ton of drums.
Yeah.
I remember taking a Joris Fjorn course, and how he mentioned like keeping the drums minimal in that progressive and melodic genre, where the drums are just, you have a base of them, but you can't go super crazy with them because they tend to like mess things up in terms of frequency spectrums, all that, like in terms of the technical stuff. So like I really love that for like the Euphoria. That's very euphoric style music, but like groove is king when it comes to house, in my opinion. And the minimal deep tech kind of covers house and deep house, and it's like they had a baby. House and deep house had a baby. Now it's like a minimal deep baby.
Yeah, I like to think about that.
You know what I mean? Like
it's a minimal deep baby.
And you know what I mean? So like, but it's, I don't know. I really enjoy it. Again, picking what you love and not judging it. There's no right or wrong in this whole game.
Yeah.
It's not even a competition. Adam Bayer talks about that a lot. It was just one of the leading techno guys out right now, and DJs and producers. There's not a competition, really. Like, I'm just trying to make the best music I can, and if people like it, and if enough people like it, then I'm on the track going forward.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong in this. Just because you like hard style or dubstep, and it's a very small group and niche community, doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
Just go find those people, hang out with them online somewhere, and then do some meetups, invest in yourself, go to whatever stuff they have in your specific niche. But there's no right or wrong in this entire game. Like, that is when you learn that, then and I think it takes a lot of pressure off of the decisions you're trying to make and the way you talk to yourself. You know what I mean? Just being cool with, all right, this is who I am. I get to learn, okay, this phase of my life, I'm a dubstep person, but in the next season of my life, I may evolve, as we all do. We will evolve and grow. You may love techno, right? So that's cool. And that's part of your journey. You get to tell that story. That's awesome. So, there's no right or wrong. Just, do what you love, period.
Yeah.
Period. Do what you enjoy. That's going to give you fulfillment. Like, this is not supposed to be something that's forced on you. This is supposed to be like a release, an escape, therapeutic. It's supposed to be medicine. It's supposed to be medicine. Music's medicine.
Yeah.
Music's medicine. And like, you get to choose whatever medicine you want. And there's no judge involved in that.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter how many people in your life don't like it. You can be your whole people in your whole life don't like the music you listen to. That's cool. It doesn't change anything about you. You love that music, and that's cool. So just getting to just like own the things that you love in the musical world and all the different aspects. Just own what you love in it. And I think that like, then it just becomes, again, fun. It goes back to being fun. It goes back to getting exciting, and and you being stimulated and being creative and being inspired by a bunch of different things. So it starts with just owning what you love.
And so who do you think inspires you like most? It could be like from previous like artists, like people not outside of the electronic music space or in the music space. Like, who are the folks that you think of like your Rushmore, your Mount Rushmore of like people, like musical inspirations over the course of your like production, even just listening as a kid?
Yeah. Oh man. I think my first person I fell in love with was like Will Smith when I was young.
Nice.
Like 1997, Big Willie style.
Oh,
it's
so
like
good.
the blue CD.
Yeah.
The blue
Miami.
Miami. He's like, I think was the Statue of Liberty behind him, and he was like an all white coat or something.
Probably was
something like that. I don't know.
It was
like
amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, and I had that like on an anti-skip player, and I would listen to it all the time because I had no cuss words, and my dad wouldn't let me listen to things with cuss words. So he was like the clean rapping album, of the time.
Yeah.
So especially when hip hop was so hectic and so chaotic. So yeah, I would say Will Smith was like the first thing that kind of got me, I loved. But as I got into electronic music, I think when we were in college, we were like running marathons, we were boxing. Yeah. And I would sprint a lot to Calvin Harris.
Nice.
And I think like the early Calvin Harris of like, of 2014, 2015, kind of Calvin Harris, 2013, 2012, like 2010 and on, Calvin Harris.
Yeah.
I really was a huge inspiration, but also, Ryan, which is one of our friends, gave me like a CD in college. It was like our junior year in college, and it was like those old Now CDs. It was like now 10, now 11. He gave me a CD. It was like the European version of Now, and it was Seek Bromance, Tim Bergling, which is Avicii. And that was like the first time I was ever, this is great. And I remember putting it on my Lenovo laptop before I switched over to Apple, and it was so shitty. And I remember listening to it over and over while I studied. And I would study to like Seek Bromance, and I would watch the video over and over before he was even Avicii, before he was even anything. So it was like, that's kind of like when I first got into it because of Ryan. It was like, I was like, wow, this is great. And then I was listening to Calvin Harris at the time. These two are great. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like where it started with electronic for me, period. Like, the electronic dance music world. And then again, like I mentioned, my buddy Kenneth took me to a techno show. So that was like my first experience of the underground fully was at a Nicole Madalber techno show, and then I think I saw Dubfire after that. So like I saw some two like living legends in the game who've taken their game to another level, playing live and playing all these different ways with Tractor and just playing in phenomenal ways. So how about yourself, bro? Like where did music, like what do you remember like your first moment with music where maybe you wore out a CD or like you like broke a CD on accident or scratched it but you wanted another one? Like was there a time where you like just obsessed over a certain album when you were growing up? What was that thing for you listened to?
I think growing up it was very curated by the radio, right? And like my environment, I grew up in Houston, as you know, and so it's like super hip hop and rap heavy, which is pretty much like all of my childhood. And I think weird enough, the first one was like it was a type between like Chameleonaire, which I think is funny, and then also Nelly, Country Grammar, because that song got really really big. And then like listening to like that, and then it was just like so blown away by like people could make like this interesting type of music, like someone from St. Louis and then someone from Houston, and they sound totally different, but they're in the same genre, right? Hip hop and rap. And I remember just like eating through those CDs, like listening to it over and over and over again. And like Chop and Screwed, I feel like was one of my favorite like types of music where you slow it up and reverb the shit out of it and you just like DJ it a little bit. So I thought that was pretty cool, like slowing down music and like just modulating it in like a different way. That's what I think I like so much about like Chop and Screw music. Like it was a remixed version of a normal song. And I started to actually play around with like Chop and Screw music when I was in like high school and college, just because I was like, it's really easy. You just lower the BPM and like whatever, like you just double up a sections. It's not that hard. But then I remember listening on the radio before I go to bed was the Blue Dum Dee Dum. I remember that the Blue song. Yeah. And I was blown away by like how good and catchy that song was. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how do you make a song like this addictive? And then I remember buying the Eiffel 65 album, and they're good. They're like an Italian, like, you know what I mean, electronic band. And so solid. And I was like, all right, that was kind of my first hint at like electronic music. And then I remember when Usher's Yeah came out with the big synths and everything. And I was like, oh shit, like this, what's happening right now? Like you listen to all these types of music and then a genre comes out or a song comes out that like kind of breaks the genre a little bit. And it becomes, again, the most powerful song right then and there. So I always kind of track like, when those type of songs come out, like why? Like what was the point of that? And then that got into like a lot of the electronic music and moving into like, you got the Darude Sandstorm and you got Gorgon City, Imagination. You're like, oh my God, Mark Knight, like these Studio 54 songs. You're like, holy shit, like there's this genre, like electronic music exists. And then you just go, I remember another first one was Blade. The movie Blade, Wesley Snipes is a vampire movie.
Sure.
And that sick ass techno song that was in the very beginning. I was like, yo, this song is hot. And I was like 8. I was 8 or I don't know. I was like really young. And I was like, yo, this song is nasty, bro. Like it makes you want to like get up and move. And then, a lot of that type of Mortal Kombat, right? Mortal Kombat music is essentially a techno song. And so like playing a lot of video games, I think music in video games is pretty influential because I feel like we play a lot of video games.
Oh yeah, good point.
So that's a big one too. And then now most recently, I feel like it's more cinematic stuff. It's more like, right, John Williams, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jaws, like shit like that's like he's creating like memorable melodies, and I think that's the key in making a really, really like super ultra like popular like powerhouse song is you got to make a melody that's like addictive essentially, and that's like so simple for you to hum. It's not too many notes apart. Like I think there's an art form in that that gets lost in electronic music. because you don't have to know as much theory.
Sure.
And then you have like the Hans Zimmers that like fucking tear it up with harmony, and even the new Dune soundtrack I've been listening to over and over again. So I think I get a lot more inspiration these days from cinematic film scores than anything, because I don't listen to a lot of electronic music outside of when we make it together. So it's nice to hear soundtracks, because that music is meant to accompany visuals to tell a story. And I think that's the most intriguing part of it now. Is it like is very much tied to an emotion, a story, a feeling, as opposed to like dancing at the club and just partying, like party music. Absolutely. So a lot of the best like electronic songs, like it's you feel that they have a little story involved. There's a little bit of journey going on. It's not just like it's at base what it's gonna do, but telling a story I feel like was like what I'll try to like track on to a little bit more.
Absolutely, yeah. And in movies, like they bring out such an intense emotion. When they move you to cry, they move you to maybe be a little bit angry, they move you to question things, right? Like music will, there's some incredible movie scores that are like they're people use all the time, right? Like look at Rocky, dun 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 dun, one of the ones that we grew up on loving boxing. So like, and then you mentioned Blue, right? They're not even words they're mentioning, right? It's just a melody. It's universal.
Yeah.
Those translate throughout the entire world. You don't have to speak a language, and I think that's very powerful. That's when you can really, really start to make it. That's what I think good electronic music does too, is like maybe not a lot of vocals, but it's just a feeling, like the Blade, right? Blade was like Darude, right?
No, but like similar effect.
Similar effect, like Darude Sansor. It's like, in the Blade, and like it's very minimal vocals. It's just really, really like it brings out an emotion in you. It makes you want to get up and move.
Yeah.
Right. It makes you want to go on an adventure. It makes you want to conquer something. It makes you want to go spar some rounds. I don't know. Like
it makes you want to fight vampires.
Want to fight vampires. Exactly. 100%. So that's I think music is like a beautiful thing because it can really evoke emotions. And I always think about like I think it was Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel. They wrote, I forget the name of the book they wrote, but they talk about music being the wallpaper of your mind. And that's a really beautiful thing. That shows that like music is healing. Music can sound in general, what it can do, right? Like how sound waves travel, like when animals communicate with each other, right? Like dolphins making certain sound waves and from far away and being able to pick up on that sonar, right?
Sure.
So like sound is just, it's like you being able to break sound barrier with a plane. So like sound is super powerful, and if we can, as producers, learn to love the sounds that we love and not judge ourselves for the sounds we love, like we're off to a good start. So.
Yeah, I think there's so much unlocked with sound and like how it makes you feel, and it's very, very powerful tool, right? When you're say maybe I need to go get some like deep work and I'm doing some writing, I'm gonna put on this type of music, and I feel like using it as a tool is really, really, we understand it a lot because we make music, right? So you're like, all right, like I kind of know what this is making me feel, but there'll be some times where I'll listen to like a certain type of song and I'll be more prone to getting angry or like getting like riled up or like ramped up, essentially, because it's that type of song. It's like you can quite easily play a different type of music and it'll like elicit a different response in you, so you can kind of guide yourself on that like emotional like journey as like a person throughout the day. Like if I listen all day long to like healing frequency music, I'm probably gonna be a little bit more chill than if I were to go back and listen to like all of my favorite like fucking rowdy rap music that I used to listen to. Like I'll get really ramped, or rock music or anything that's like really intense music. And I think that's a really fun thing to think about when you're using music like as a tool, not even just for like creation, but like what am I doing right now? Like what activity am I gonna jump in right now, and like what am I gonna listen to then like essentially like make you better at it or performance enhance whatever that activity is. It could be healing frequency, you could do Gregorian chant music that we love to listen to, like all weird genres, and all this shit is on YouTube. Like all of it is already on there for you to listen to. And I think unfortunately so much of it is like people are just like, I don't really care what I listen to. Like you just throw on whatever and I'm gonna whatever, which is cool. Like it's sick they can do that, but I get because we kind of like to curate, you get real picky, and you could quite easily like curate your whole day with music, and it's kind of fun. You get to DJ your whole day.
For sure, absolutely. Even if you don't like cleaning the house, like you're gonna probably put some good music on to outweigh the fact that you don't like cleaning the house. To help you get you moving, kind of like helps you drown out, the mundane activity of cleaning your house. or whatever the case may be. So I think having a soundtrack to your life is like, it can create a lot of positive effects. It can give you a lot of energy, it can help you get over a breakup, right? People like the power of a breakup song, right? Or songs that help you move through breakups. Like music has the ability to help us create shifts in our lives and change our state. And I think that we're in when we're in a low state, changing our state, whether it be, you know, doing push-ups and listening to your favorite song, like that changes your state. It's going to help you feel better. And ultimately it's going to help you become more of a problem solver, right? Yeah. So not to get too like into like personal development, but like the music can help facilitate all of beautiful things, like if you allow it to, right? Or it can help facilitate negative things, right? Like if, you know, listening to something negative when you're feeling negative, then it's obviously going to amplify the negativity. Sure. But if, you know, if you're like, you know what, hey, like I'm going to listen to some really chill, like Love Frequency, like, you know, really peaceful music. Yeah. And maybe try to shift my day, turn my day around so that I can have a productive day in the studio later on. And that's a way you can use music to do that as well. It's like, okay, cool, I snapped me out of it. Now I'm ready to make some music. Now maybe I am over the imposter syndrome. Maybe these limiting beliefs aren't as loud. Those voices have quieted down, right? So yeah, I think exploring music, again, in all the ways, it's only going to help you make whatever it is you choose to make even better. Like, you know, understanding it all, not judging it all, learning from it all, and just being curious and student for life when it comes to like all the different sounds there are in the world and the science behind the sounds, how deep that science is. So everything from the travel in space has to deal with sound to like, you know, bouncing your Project in Ableton. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, you know, so it's a huge arena. And I'm grateful that I just even started the journey, and I'm just scratching the surface. 'Cause there's a lot left to learn.
What do you think is like in your essentials bag of like things to make a song? Like, what are like things that you're like, yo, I gotta have it could be environment, it could be, you know, sounds, it could be your laptop, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, what are like, what's your like, you know what I mean? Like your pack that has everything that you could survive on to make music, like literally anywhere.
Oh man, for sure, like a UAD Apollo Twin X, something like that. Like a good laptop, like a solid laptop, and some solid headphones. It doesn't really matter which, and then some sonar works on the headphones if you're going to be like remote anywhere. If you're not going to be in a studio setting, if you're not going to be like in the perfectly treated environment to hear everything, then like a good laptop, and obviously I love the Universal Audio plugins. I'm very familiar with them, and they particularly work well for what we do. And so I'm like those three things: good headphones, a good interface, and a solid laptop. Like terabyte space. I mean, like a good chunk of space. Good processor. Yeah, MacBook Pro. So to speak. Like I'm very much an Apple person when it comes to production. So that's all really I need, and a good scenery. Like, you know what I mean? Good scenery. I'd prefer to be out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? I'd rather be able to go shoot a bow, chop some wood, do some like lumberjack shit after I'm done, or in between my music making sections. Go punch a punching bag, do something like that. Go start a fire. I don't know. Go chop down a tree with the saw, like with like a dead tree with the saw to start making some like cool fort or something. Like doing something where I'm like it's very grounding. Like I think that's very grounding. Being in nature, taking off your shoes. Like it really helps reset. When you sit down, it's like you got a full rest. Like it's like you're back from halftime. You know what I mean? Like I really does feel like you're back from halftime. Coach gave you a good talk. You're fired up, and then you're ready to go again, right? You're ready to like finish strong. But that's how I kind of look at being in the middle of nowhere. I kind of can leverage, you know, at the core of who you are as a human. You have to leverage that, like being out in nature, like, you know, cities weren't around thousands of years ago, right?
Sure,
mostly nature and all that good stuff. So I think that personally helps me. It works best for me. Is like being so close to some place that's remote or has some sort of beautiful like landscape.
That's amazing.
Even if it's my backyard, like you can have a beautiful backyard. Like you can set up your backyard to be sick. You know what I mean? You can go whatever you want to do in your backyard. So like, again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Just create the environment that feels good to you. There's no right or wrong. I don't know if you like to have, I don't know, stuffed pigs or something like that, like or whatever, like Beanie Babies, or it doesn't really matter like what you want to. It doesn't matter. If it makes you evoke emotion, if it brings out an emotion in you, it's gonna help you focus and make your best music. Then do that. Like you know, then do that. So What about you? What are the essentials that you feel like you need to make your best music, or just to make something?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, or thanks for asking it back. And I think the laptop, like you said, is essential, given kind of what we do. It's like everything's on a computer for the most part. So a solid computer. I really do think having like a MIDI there, like a piano to be able to play on, has been helpful recently, because I do think the music gets a little bit like stale if you don't have that like human component of you like touching an instrument externally. It just like kind of helps me like come up with ideas more, or just it feels a little bit better. Probably like 1 to 2 really good plugins that you like a lot. So it would end up being like whatever your favorite instruments are. Like, I mean, Serum is just like so easy to use. I think that one's pretty automatic for me. Like the M1's like pretty automatic. And so like getting like those VSTs dialed in, like you have like these 3 plugins that you like that are like, this is the holy grail for me. Like I know how to use them. I master them. You can make all the sounds on whatever like synth plugin that you can use, just kind of based on preference. I do think a really good sample library is like one thing that I noticed recently. Like you got to manage that and keep that up to date, and keep kind of like, it's a garden. You want to make sure everything's really fresh, and it's not, you know, sounds and things that you're not using anymore, or that's you're not even, you don't want to listen to anymore. You want to get inspired by the instruments and like sound selection that you have. So I think that that's one that I've been battling with recently, where I have a lot of sounds in my library where I'm like, this worked for me like so many months ago, but right now I'm finding myself like you're wanting a little bit more on sound selection. And that'd be really good. Like you said, environment. Like I do think like playing around with where you make music is gonna like give you a different sound everywhere. Like, you know, don't force yourself to go work at a coffee shop if you don't like there, but try it out one time and see what happens, and go to you're in your forest, and go check it out when you're in nature, and then go in your dark laboratory studio and make a song. Like try out different environments, because I think that is like probably the biggest, most important thing about electronic music production, is you can make it anywhere. So you probably are going to get a lot out of it if you go anywhere, somewhere, and go make that music. I make way different music here than in Austin, Texas, than I would in Boston or over in Barcelona. You know what I mean? So like play around with that and see what even comes about, what new emotions and feeling. I think that is probably my favorite thing about making music from a computer, or making, as we said, computer music. Is that you can just do it wherever. Like it's hard to pull up with a fucking drum set and play out in a coffee shop. It's no one's gonna like that. So you can do that with your headphones, and of course a good pair of headphones. But like you could do that anywhere, and no one knows what you're making, but you can hear them, but they can't hear you, and I think that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fun things I loved asking you, because you were moving Shake a lot. So like, where was this made? I'm like, where was this kitchen table? Oh no, that was a train in Italy. Yeah. So that's always a fun, like, it's just fun to know where you created that, and like, you know, what was happening in it at the time. You know, like some of the biggest records. I remember when we were in the course with John. He told the story about when he made I Feel It, which is like 30-something million streams on Spotify. Huge. His biggest record went silver in the UK. He made it when he didn't feel well. He made it when he was like subpar. Wow. You know, and he had found the pack. He wasn't feeling good. And they showed it to Tool Room and Mark Knight and them, and they loved it. And it was just like, he had no intention of this being the biggest record of his career. Yeah. So I think it just goes to show, like, when you show up and just create because you're having fun, or you're doing it because you enjoy it, or you're just doing it because like, there's no attachment to an outcome, that's when like the best things happen. Like who would have thought like a number one, like a record like that huge would even get that way, with you being sick and under the weather, or just not being at 100%, which goes to show you don't always have to be 100% to make your best music. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, again, this is another great analogy I hear a lot, is the Jerry Seinfeld. Like, he just showed up to write jokes. Yeah, and even if he wasn't writing jokes in that hour, he was doing something else related to it. Right, thinking about him or pondering on his show, like he was doing something related to it. So I think that's huge. Is like showing up, whatever work gets done, being proud of it. You showed up, right, and you gained some experience points, and you're moving forward. And I'm excited for the next day, because who knows what the next day is going to bring. It could be the silver record in the UK, right? It could be something that's life changing for you, right? That'll take you from being just, you know, someone working really hard on the music they love to someone that's making a full-time living doing it. So just treating and being excited about each new day, because you don't know what's going to bring. And if you like, just, it's a surprise, it's a gift. Like, I'm going to have some sort of direction, but like whatever I make's a gift. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
Serious. This is like being able to be a creative being. I'm able to leverage my imagination, which we don't get to do a lot nowadays. Like, our imagination is usually like fear-based, right? So like you get to like drop in and create something that's never been created before, and that what a beautiful gift. And no matter if you love it or you don't love it, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because you have a gajillion left inside of you. If you plan to do this forever, like unlimited art. And I think when you can start like taking that pressure off yourself and just like, okay, I can make an unlimited amount of music, and so whenever I want to, till the day I die, cool. Like I'm excited to wake up the next day because who knows what I'm gonna make today.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's what makes it really fun and adventurous, and keeps things from getting stale, as you mentioned. And
I also think that's really helpful because you mentioned it so well put. We're creative beings, and that you're unlimited, right? You don't have like a cap on the amount of resources that you have creatively or in an imagination sense. We don't get to use it as much because art is so good now where you could get fed like movies and cinema all the time, and that is your imagination. Like that's someone else's imagination and you're getting presented it, but we don't necessarily get to work on that skill too often. That's why I think it's so helpful to like read, and as you read you're going to be able to create in your mind what that picture and that scenario, paint that picture. But I also feel like doing other art forms is so clutch when it comes to like understanding how something else works. And like a lot of people that they play one instrument but they go listen to another instrument to see how that. So we have a friend who's a really good harmonica player. He plays harmonica, but he often listens to guitar solos and how they change sound, how they do chord progressions, because you'll get something from that other instrument that you would never get in that one instrument. And same goes with like you can go painting, or you can go like creative writing, or you could go dancing. Like going and experiencing life in different like art forms, even just viewing it or participating in it, or just like even being around it, is going to give you a different insight onto how you do your thing. Because quite often the process does go stale because you think, all right, I have a formula for writing a song, and once you figure that formula out, you can't stick with it forever because you're gonna lose. It's gonna get stale, and you're gonna miss on something new and creative that you weren't doing before. So I think that like kind of reinventing the creative process is, I think, super helpful by intaking like other art forms.
Yeah. And then you being flexible with your flow.
Yeah.
Hey, like if I start with the drums every time, that's cool. I'm down to start with the drums and start that bass. But like if I'm just craving melody,
Yeah.
like start with the melody, make the melody, get into the song, and then get pumped to finish the drums or start the drums, and just turn the other stuff off, right?
Yeah.
It's done already. So like have that flexibility and grace with yourself is huge, and if you're not being really creative and you don't feel like playing in a lot of MIDI, or if it's just something that's not right, but you have some amazing loops, use the loops. Like it's 2024. Like there's no shame in losing loops as long as it's a good loop.
Yeah.
As long as it's a high quality loop. Like there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we can also, it's another thing about when you start off as a producer, you can judge yourself for like, oh, I didn't craft this from scratch. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't do that. You don't have to do that. You can be that person, but you're probably not going to get a lot done at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like you're probably going to procrastinate. You're probably going to overthink. You're probably not going to finish a lot of things, and you're probably going to get a sour taste. You're going to become embittered to the craft.
Yeah.
Right. Because you let whoever make you think that you only need to do this. You only from my synth, only from this VST. Only no, bro. Like if I just bought a pack for $30, like I'm gonna use that pack. Why not?
Yeah.
Like fuck, I spent $30. Let me use it.
Yeah.
We chop it up. But you can chop things up. You can make things have variation. So like, and again, that's another big part of like starting. It's just okay, cool. There's no right or wrong here. If I go back to the principle of there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like in golf, I don't care if I hacked my way to a par round.
Yeah.
Any fairways. I didn't hit any but I like it just short game my up and down from everywhere. And what was it? Still made par, still shot par. It doesn't matter how, it's only how many, right? It doesn't matter how you got to the end of the song. You got to the end of the song. It's done.
Yeah.
Right. next.
Yeah.
Or what's the next, mix and master, okay, next.
Yeah. And you learn from that. You learn from like doing it in a different way than you did the previous time. Because if you get so caught up in like, well, I got to make it like only with, instruments, and I got to make everything, like you're limiting yourself to not even exploring other people's sounds and like even getting those loops and being like inspired by them. A lot of the times won't use the loop, but I'll get inspiration from that loop, be like, oh, okay, this makes sense for melody wise. And we do often get jaded with like, I got to make everything and it got to sound so original, and I'm cheating if I use someone else's bass lines. Like as long as it sounds like cohesive and it makes sense, like I think everybody's having a good time. No one's gonna care. Like I literally show music to people all the time, and like they never ask, like, did you write that bass line? Like, no. They're like, that song sounds good. Most of the time when people, you listen to like the music producers, they're gonna be like, yeah, sounds good, bro. Or like, I don't like it that much. You know what I mean? They don't put that much. It's like, it's such a quick, it's like flash of moment in time. And I think that's like the heaviness and the lightness of like your music. Like it's a passing moment in time, and it can't be like, God, this song has to be so good, or I'm gonna I suck at music. And it's like, no, like you make a song, it's like, do you like it? It's like, cool, you probably had fun making it. Like, send it out there, let it be, taking it however it wants, and then you keep it moving. You don't get so bogged down by like, God, I wish I was able to blah 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 blah. Like, enjoy that process, get it out there, and then keep it moving and enjoy yourself. And then I think it's hard at times to not get caught up with that. You send it out there, oh, no one's listening to this. Only 100 people listen to my song. It's like, it's a lot of people when you think about relatively. You got like, if you looked at 100 people standing in front of you and you could see their faces and they were all listening to their song and they were like, yeah, this is good, you would feel so fucking happy if that, but that doesn't equate these days, because now you're comparing relatively to 1 million likes or 1 million streams. And that comparison, as you know, Thief of Joy, it will destroy that process for you. And it's really just like the cherry on top when you get to send the music out there and someone likes it. That's crazy, because realistically it's just you that you needed to please, and like you have a good time making it. Do you like the song that you made? All right, cool. That's it. Like, stop. Like, everything needs to, like, we don't need to like delve further a lot of the times into that process. But I mean, it's a metrics driven society, so unfortunately that does happen.
It does happen, yeah. And that's not to say like don't shoot for the metrics, don't have goals. That's great, but if you're gonna have those goals, be specific and have a realistic timeline. Like, I think people don't have a realistic timeline. They think in days and not decades, which is another Mosey Nation-ism. You know what I mean? People think in decades. They don't think in decades. They think in days. And when it comes again to a craft that requires meticulous work and using your ear every single day, where you can't take shortcuts, like if you don't show up, you're gonna lose on that. You're gonna lose out on your ear getting better. So just thinking in larger time horizons, longer time horizons, and creating a plan for yourself that's sustainable. Like, what's sustainable? Just being sustainable is what? Like, being able to talk to yourself nicely, understand that you have learning curves, and there's no right or wrong. Like, get those foundational things set. Take some time to get those foundational things set. Then you can transition into making the best music of your life, right? There's stages and levels to things. And if people can realize that and realize it's not a race, it is not a competition. If anything, it's a competition with yourself. You're growing with yourself. Like music's subjective. Like, some people are going to love our music. Some people are going to think it's shit. That's just the way it goes. And it's all great. That's all wonderful. That's all wonderful. I think, when you first start out, just really do the inner work. Do sit with your inner dialogue, see how you can change that inner dialogue, change your story that you have about yourself and your creativity, feed yourself really, really positive, uplifting things. And you can get that from a lot of different sources, whatever fits you best. But, start there and start reprogramming, for lack of a better term, the way you talk to yourself and the way you see creativity and the way you see your creativity and the things you love and you don't love, and start owning all that. And I think like that's like a great first step. So then you can have a really fun musical career, whatever, hobby, whatever it is for you. So you can enjoy it. You have fun. You can enjoy it, and you can't enjoy it if you're not having fun.
Exactly.
Right. So like, again, just I think music's here to heal and to help, and it's not here to like cause all this stress and all this angst. It's supposed to do the opposite, right? It's supposed to do the opposite. So like, if anything, like, hey, I just got to be in the studio. Be grateful that you even have a studio. You have a computer. You have the ability to even be mad at your shitty work.
You even have shitty work.
You have shitty work. Some people will
pretty
fucking
cool.
pretty cool. Like, I'm like, you see, like, people will do anything just to get a fucking laptop in their possession, you know, in different parts of the world that don't have a lot, right? Like, you have the ability to make shitty music. Yeah. Awesome. It's a great first start. I'm breathing, I'm living, I can make some shit music. Like, that's a win, dude. Like, it's a win. Like, you can't be beating yourself up for, like, being a beginner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everyone's a beginner at some time. And, you know, and then once you get past the other stages, you know, there's new levels, and to those, you know, there's new devil. There's new bosses to conquer, right? But I think beginning, what's helped me most is just be grateful for it all, like every last bit of it. And it sounds, words can sometimes be overused, but like just being very thankful and just counting your little wins. Like, I woke up today and I got to write a shitty song. Awesome. I get to wake up tomorrow and probably write a better song, because I'm not gonna have shitty days every day. Right. So like, I think starting from there, it really changed the game for me personally. That's what would work best for me, for sure. Thinking of it like that allowed me to just show up day after day after day after day.
I feel like you'll learn more about yourself making music than you will about music, because there's an infinite amount to learn, both about music and yourself, but you're really just kind of peeking in to you a little bit in some like analogous way. And I think that's so helpful, to just using music as a medium to understand the world more and yourself and emotions. And there's certain things like it would be really hard for me to express and feel and even like conceptualize if music weren't there. Like, if Jaws did not have that soundtrack that it did, it would be a completely different movie. So like, that just gives you insight on how powerful the craft of like music composition, production, whatever it is, it just being there. It's not essential to a human's life in any way, but as you know, it shows up in all cultures at all times. Like, everything has a rhythm. Like, you have to kind of think about that. This is everywhere all the time. Like, this is probably telling me something overall. And it's just really powerful. And it's really fun to play around with something that powerful that does, I mean, it does come with some side effects and downfalls if you get like too caught up in things, but it is this like infinite source of like fun and creativity and joy and expression. And if you just leave it at that, and like, you'll probably live the rest of your life being really, really happy with either the music the music that you listen to. And it's so easy for someone like myself to get really caught up in what other people are making, like, that song's not better than mine, but it's getting more streams than me. Like, it's so easy to be human, right? As a human. And so it's really, really helpful, to your point, be really grateful for things, just be really in awe and curious, as opposed to being like label. Like, I'm going to put that in that box and like not think about it anymore, and just be at the sheer like, wow, like, look at this and be like, oh my God, like, this is this. I'm not trying to compare it to anything else. Even when you go from session to session, like, you have a great session, the next time you go in, it's a hard session, like, still a good, you know what I mean? You're going to always want to compare the two, but if you take each moment as like its individual, like, sample size, that one occurrence in time, you're probably going to have a much better time. You're going to get a lot farther. You won't be looking behind you for answers that you know aren't there, because that's just something you already did. You have to keep present and look forward to whatever you're doing next, because it is so fun. And you do have, as a music producer, you have all musical elements. You have the world at your fingertips. So you could do so much with it, and that scary at first, but once you kind of get it, understand it, and learn that everything has like kind of a foundation and function to it, like, it does get pretty amazing. And every time you step in the studio or open up your DAW workstation, you're like, man, this is so cool. Like, I could just make this one thing and be like, wow, like, this is amazing. But it's that childlike wonder we tend to often lose as time goes on in our life, but is realistically always there.
Exactly. And again, on those bad days, those are sometimes gives you the most data on those bad days. You get the most data from those bad days. And if you can start looking at those bad days, the days you didn't want to go, but you showed up, those are the days you like 3-4x, really, right? Because you incorporate discipline also with showing up when you don't want to show up. I imagine that does something neurologically to your mind. It creates something, neurochemically. I'm not an expert in that, but it has to do something. There's something that happens when you show up on a bad day, and there's something that you wire yourself a different way. You can feel it. I don't know what it is, but like, there's days where I don't show up, I don't feel like showing up, and there was a bad day, but damn, I felt like I learned something that I got better at. Like it was, I got shit feedback. Maybe I got really good. Remember, I thought I did perfect, and I got feedback I didn't think was gonna get. Okay, cool. It didn't feel good, but like, yeah, this is great data. That's awesome. Ask more questions about it. Cool. Why do I typically come to that mistake? Okay, cool. Makes sense. Awesome. You can turn that good days like, oh, this is a data rich day. Like your failures are your most data rich days. All the times you fail and mess up, and that's great. And then if you can learn to just download that data like your AI, like I'm just teaching my Chat GPT extension of my, with more data. And I'm teaching myself with more data. Okay, cool. Now I can make this mistake less or not again in the future.
Sure.
Right? Now I can teach my ear what to listen for when I'm mixing and mastering this type of thing.
Sure.
So like, yeah, I think again, these are all foundational things when you start, like, get those things down, I think, and I think you can become unstoppable of whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
Even if it's just, I want to be an unstoppable hobbyist. Yeah. Like, great. That's fantastic. Like, and if you want to really enjoy it your whole life as a hobbyist, then do these things, right? Do these things first. And I think it just makes for a better, more enjoyable, like, adventure.
Yeah, for sure.
Journey.
Some of those days when you're like, I always feel like life or music or whatever is like almost like this really immovable object that you're just fighting for like centimeters and inches on like moving. And the days that it's really easy and you push so far and you gain so much, yeah, it feels great, but it doesn't feel as good as those days when you work so fucking hard to move that object like an inch. Yeah. And you're like, wow, you're so proud of this thing that you did all this hard work for. Because if it was that easy, like, it wouldn't be that fun and it wouldn't be that enjoyable, because the challenge is so difficult and so like infinite. Then you're like, wow, like what? You're like, you're in space. You're just floating around, picking out sounds from here and there, using new like AI tools to generate sound. Like, that's what's really cool about it. Not the like, oh my God, like their new thing is coming out and like scarcity mindset, like, oh fuck, this is taking away from here. No, it's like, no, like if you're stuck in the past and you're not utilizing everything around you as a resource and tool, like, it's probably going to be a really scary world. Like Ableton's going to really suck if you think that all these options are slowing you down. Like, you just have to do one thing at a time. And if you take it that slow with music, then you'll have a good time. Because it's not like, oh my God, I got to make a hit #1 Beatport song. It's like, no. All you got to do is figure out what kick you're going to put in. It's the first thing. All right, cool. The next step, let's throw in some hats. Like, it's very, when you relate to that and like the teaching process, you just got to feed yourself like one step forward. And then you get really far along and you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I made a whole 6-minute song. Like, how the fuck did that happen? It's like the same way everybody else is doing it. One instrument at a time, one channel at a time, like one step at a time. And music is not different in any way whatsoever. We just like to fast track things because we hear everybody's finished product at the highest level. You hear Ed Sheeran's song, you're like, God damn, that's crazy good. And you're like, how does that even happen? And he did it the same way anybody else. Someone's doing it right now. They're learning one piano note. They're doing one chord at a time. And I think that's really cool. So you can all have that like all-seeing appreciation for music and life, because it's just like you'll get it, as much you put in, as much you'll get out of it. Yeah. You half-ass it, you're probably gonna get some half-ass results, and you won't feel that proud of it. But you put your everything into it, like anything, you will feel so much, like you said, gratitude and appreciation and fulfillment, because you actually sat in like that really uncomfortable, vulnerable place and you created something. And that's realistically what humans are meant to do, is just create. Yeah. We've created all this. We've created podcasts. We've created all this fun stuff. We've created friendships. Like all we do is just like infinite, like imagination, like you said, creation machine.
Yeah, man. Like nothing worthwhile is easy. Just kind of like nothing worthwhile is easy. And the reward of that is just a skill and something you get to create that comes from your heart, and you get to tap into that creator version, the creator inside of you. A lot of people don't think they're creative, and then you talk to people who are like, I don't think I'm creative. Talk to a lot of people who are like, well, I'm just not creative. That's not my thing. Art's not my thing. When in reality, we all have it in us. Like we are born with creativity and imagination that's taken away from us at such a young age. Like when you're daydreaming in class, like a little kid, no, you shouldn't be daydreaming. Like, it's like what they're actually doing is building beautiful images in their head, and they're, who knows what they're doing, but it's probably super beautiful. And I think they take away from a lot of that, like in the modern school system, and the way they take away the creativity. They try to put you as a creative or not creative. Scientists are creative. Artists are creative. We're all creative. It doesn't matter what you pick. English majors are creative. Historians are creative the way they retell the history, right? Like it's all how you present, like is creative. So like being able to realize that if you ever thought you were uncreative before getting to music, you can like just squash that, that myth that you're born creative. You're born creative, so yeah, I think like when we can also tap into that and realize that nothing worthwhile is easy. So I'm just gonna just use what I have mostly. Like you may be married and have kids and you only have an hour and a half a day for music, if that, or you have to wake up super early to get it in before the kids wake up. And like you can't be upset with your circumstances. You just got to utilize what you have and start and realize that, hey, you made other decisions with other priorities that are now in place. You may have a little bit longer of a timeline, but that's your timeline. That's your story. That's unique to you. And that can help someone in some way. Like, I have a family. I have this job I don't like, and I'm still making music. And it's like, you can do it. It took me 5, 6, 7, 10 years, but I did it, right? And now I'm signed to one of my favorite labels after 10 years of making music and raising a family and going through life, right? Like, so I think that's huge too. Like, doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, what circumstance you're in, like you just make best what you have. I have my next door neighbor at my first studio. He had an amazing story. He told me before he even got that studio, they were making beats and like in the closet and like hanging the microphone from the ceiling fan or something.
Nice,
like the most like MacGyver studio. They let nothing stop them. They figured out a way to make the music they love because they weren't going to accept excuses. They weren't going to accept they didn't have the money or whatever to do the studio or the position to be in the studio. So like they're a perfect example of like, of like there's really no excuse and there's no one standing in your way other than you every single time. So if you could just take, as Jocko Willink would say, extreme ownership like of your circumstances and figure out a way to how can I make my schedule work? Because all we have is time. And if you want something bad enough, you will make time for it. So like figure out what that looks like for you. If you have to make the sacrifice, go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, so be it. Does this mean that much to you? Right.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do it, then it might just be like something you're like entertained with, or it's a cool idea, but it's something that it's really not important to you. Yeah. And yet just coming to terms with that, like you can entertain all the excuses in the world, but I mean, it's still going to leave you when you're 90 years old regretting that you never did music. And I think that's one of my biggest motivators for sure is regret. And it sounds kind of dark. It's kind of like, but it's one of my big reasons. Like did I leave everything I had out, out in the world? Yeah. Every last ounce of energy, creativity, innovative idea, helping hand, did I leave all of it? And that's what gets me to go be in the DAW. It's what gets me to invest tens and tens of thousands of dollars into music, education, business education. I mean, that's definitely what's worked for me, and it's helped me like move past dark things or limiting beliefs or blocks, or it's helped me move past certain relationships I know they're not good for me. Friendships, you know what I mean? It's done a lot for me, you know what I mean? And so, if someone's looking for a source of like, or a big reason to create momentum, like regret was something that helped me.
Absolutely.
So,
because you don't want to, it's like I think a Michael Beckworth was, you don't want to die with your like art inside of you. Right. So you want to have that out there. You want to get a lot of that out there. And so much of the previous generations like weren't necessarily guided toward creativity and imagination, more so like utility and function and like owning a home to keeping a job for a long time, which rightfully so. They like, that was their like fulfillment or success, like metric, but now it's kind of not, it's like in this weird ambiguous place where it's all acceptable, but we're not getting as much creativity and imagination as we would like, because our world is very much so catered to just kind of like following in line, standing and like doing the thing, like kind of keeping on track. And you don't need necessarily to engage in imagination anymore. Like you could just watch YouTube videos all day and watch and TV at nighttime, and you could get told what to do at work. And like, you can kind of really follow like on this like worker ant, stay in line and get very far and have a fulfilled life and have a family and a house. Sure. And it's fucking sick. But like the imagination, the scary, the vulnerable part is where you probably get a lot of insight on who you are, like where you are, how you are, you know what I mean? Who the real you is. I think it's just such a big peek into your existence and like what you like, what is music telling you, like how are you responding to certain things. Like it's just a really good mirror that's a little bit more interactive than an actual mirror, right? It takes a long time to like, you know, say I'm gonna lose like 20 pounds. It takes a little bit of time. It's like, just like that takes time, like making a song takes a lot of time, and it'll show you along the journey what you gain and what you learn. And it's so much about the tools in which you gain along that like journey to the top more than it is like getting to the top, because once you're at the top, there's another top, and there's another, and you just keep going. But like the gathering of all those resources and friends and community and life lessons, like that's the part that is life, and that's the part that is so fun about music making. Not to make this like such an esoteric conversation about music production, but it is so fun to think about it as like a journey, you know, through life and sound and what you want to do. And then that, I think that allows us to be a little bit less tight and like keep a lot of tension in music production, like it's a online business, or like, oh, like it's like I'm working at a job 9 to 5, like I gotta make all these sales and gotta do all these things. Like no, music will be whatever you need it to be in the moment when you need it to be it. So like just relax and play around and see what comes about, because you'll find a lot more not being so like direct. Because like if you only want to find one thing, like you're gonna miss out on the million other things that are around you. And I think that's what my favorite part about music is. You just like pull up and it's just like a blank space of like infinite, and then boom, some sound appears, and then like another sound appears next to that, and then you just mold them together, and then you have like this really cool visual, and you're like, holy shit, like that came from nothing. And that shows you how much power you have as a human being to create something out of technically nothing.
Yeah, man, at the end of the day, we get to do this. We don't fucking have to do any of this.
Yeah.
And that's what people, I feel like when people get into this, they feel like, oh, I have to do this or I have to do this. Bro, you're choosing to do this. You get to do this. And you're looking at every little hurdle as, man, I get to learn sound design. I get to learn music theory. I get to learn mixing and mastering. I get to learn all these things. It's not a burden. It's not like, oh, I don't want to fucking mix this shit. I'm going to hire someone else to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, it's like you get the opportunity to learn this and you have the time to do it. Right? Like you get to do this, right? Like you may not enjoy it. At least try it first. So you don't like it, okay, cool. But you still like, you get to get the song ready to send out to mix and master. You get to do that. It's not an annoying thing. It's not a nuisance. All these little things aren't a nuisance. You get to do these things.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. It's like, it is a blessing to be able to like, just be able to make music in your spare time with good equipment. You know, even if it's just like the laptop in bedroom, that's cool. Like still to have that, you know, ability to do that and the resources to do that, right? You get to do all this, and that's a big shift too. Like I get to do this. I get to go to the studio. I get to make a song. I get to make samples. I get to do these things. I'm supposed to make, oh fuck, I have to go balance these fucking stems to send out for a remix. It takes so long in Ableton, blah blah blah. Like that's like, if you can like get the way you think, and even in those little ways, to like I get to instead of I have to. Again, you just show up with more of an open mind. Your capacity to handle stress is better, and you look at stress as just like, it's the entry, man. That's the price of admission to get in the game, is to be able to be able to go through hardships, to go through learning curves, to question yourself, to learn about who you are creatively. It's like, again, like you said, we're learning about who we are as a person. So that can in and of itself be like scary. Sometimes you don't want to look at this part of yourself. It's like, fuck, that's kind of dark, or fuck, this is really cool. I didn't know I had this side to me, right? But yeah, again, like music can again provide you so much if you allow it to, and if you allow it to, and you have an open mind, you're willing to learn, you stay humble, and you put in the work. Like there's no shortcuts to any of this. There's none, like whatsoever. You can't rush your ear. So and enjoy the process and surround yourself with good people too.
Nice.
Like
We'll get closing question, which is like top 5 songs, like right now. It could be all time. It could be currently what you're listening to, but like what are some songs that like really catch your ear and attention right now? Maybe stuff to go listen to in the off time, and just maybe musical inspirations at the moment.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh man, like I'm really, really loving that. It's called Desire. It's a Chris Dusty, one of his latest releases. Really, really good. I think he wrote it in the airport, he was saying.
Nice.
And it's a really, really cool song. I just love the melody, the way the piano is, and that song is really, really nice. Like the way like the progression is really nice, and the melody, it's just really, really solid. Yeah, honestly, I've been just studying a lot of like going back to again talking about minimal deep tech, just learning more about that, the different sample synthesizers they use. But I would say Desire is probably the number one right now. There's just so many. But honestly, like as of right now, I've been making more music than anything. I can't say I've been listening to a lot of like other people. But yeah, I would say Desire from Chris Dusty's one of them for
Maybe
sure.
one of our songs or your songs.
One of our yeah one of our songs I've been really really loving is it's unreleased. It's called The History of Love. It's really really cool. Spanish spoken word. Really really fun song. It hasn't come out yet. And been listening back some of the songs, getting really good feedback on SoundCloud, like Wake Me Up. It gets a lot of good feedback. Like a remix of Where the Party At from
Sick.
Jagged Edge and shit like that. That's been doing well. So been really just growing our music and listening to our music and figuring out what songs we're gonna offer to people. And we have an amazing list of people and people who we communicate with on email and been really curating for them what to give them, with free songs to give those DJs and how we can help, make their life better when they play out and, and how we can give them samples and songs for their next song. So I've been really just focused on our music and really cool remixes we have of some classic songs like I listen to a lot is like the MK17.
Oh, so good.
So good. Remix that we did were really cool. And then there's one that it's called the Roof Remix.
Oh yeah,
it's another tech house one that is just such a hype song. Like such a fun song that it's not like the deep tech. It's more tech house, but I feel like it's like a darker, just really like driving tech house. Really really fun. Really just rowdy, just like rowdy rowdy type song. So honestly, like just haven't been listening to that much music lately. Like I kind of like gone on like what you've been doing, just taking a break from listening to a lot of like following the best of the best. And just focus on the craft really a lot, making a lot and focusing on like our fans, man. We have like a nice solid foundation with what we're doing on SoundCloud, and we've got a lot of great support there. So I really really appreciate everybody, and we got some stuff coming for them, and that's what I've been focused on.
Nice.
Is like what songs that we've created so many songs, like for example with Max Chapman, just learning songs we just created with him during the pandemic and on. We just became good friends and make a lot of music and learn. I know he gets tired of making his music like we would all do and want to make something different. Yeah. And he makes some amazing melodic music. Like he's an incredible producer, and he has like a fantastic taste. And so things like that we're gonna give away that we'll never release, right? That we made and we'll give away to our fans and people that they can use and to enjoy music and to use in their sets or for whatever they feel necessary. So it's been focusing on that honestly, like a lot of unreleased stuff from us in the minimal deep tech and house space. So there's some other exciting ones I won't share yet, but I've been really focusing on our community and how we can get them more of the music. And see what they need to ask them, getting the right questions, ask to get them, what do they need? What do they want? Do they, custom songs, or is it, more of like just they want some of the unreleased music, but just kind of getting a feel for what our fans want. Cause again, like that's what keeps us going is the people's feedback and the people downloading and all the amazing hundreds of downloads we've had now. So I've just been really focused on our people and making as much music as possible for those people and for the competitions we enter and stuff, and all that kind of stuff and the feedback. So honestly, I haven't been listening to a ton of music. I haven't been on the referencing train like I had when I first started, right? Because all you do is reference. You're just like ripping off other people's songs, which is cool. And that's actually how Disclosure did it. And when they on an interview, like I just ripped off their favorite music for a long time. Yeah. So I feel like I'm in a phase now where like I just want to see what comes out. And I kind of know what the genre is going to be, and that's it. But like just really focusing on our people and creating the best music for them and for the people in our ecosystem.
That's a good one. I mean, I think it's nice to like reference and you listen to other music, but then also like bring it back to like, okay, what does that mean for my music? I listen to these songs. How does it make me feel? What are they utilizing? How am I going to utilize not the same instrument, the same chord progression, the same sound design, but something similar that gives me that same feeling as a lot of those songs. And I think for me, it's trying to like lean on what is like that simple, like really powerful part of the song. Like it's like if I can make a song that has like four just crazy big components to it and that are all really, really good, like that's the song. It's not a gajillion layers anymore, but it's like just like a nasty pads. It's a real one good melody line, like crazy bass, solid drums. Like, what is like the most simple, boiled down version of a lot of that? And for songs for me recently, it's been that Blade like themed like techno song. Listen to that over and over again. So simple. Like Dirty Vegas, Days Go By, like back in the day, crazy good. And then like the Mortal Kombat's a sick one too. It's just so funny. Like Darude Sandstorm Blue, all those like old classic songs, and like Super Mode, like going back and Tell Me More, like going back and seeing like, man, like why were these songs so good in such like an early development stage in electronic music? Because they still hold up today, and I think that's really impressive, where a lot of music might not like stand the test of time. Sure. Like, because you can create so much of it, but it's the value of it is not, it doesn't hold. And like, why do songs hold value for longer? Same as like cars, right? Like, why are those classic cars getting like, you know, not devaluing over time? And I think I look about that with music and seeing about that, and like certain, like, I don't know, the Dune like love theme I think is like a sick I heard a remix of it, like a techno remix of it. It sounded sick as fuck. But like listening to those like songs, like Duel of Fates, like John Williams, Star Wars, like why is that song so good? How are they making it? And learning from like other genres, I think are really, really big. And all of our shit's so crazy, so it's it's fun to release music that reflects who we are at that time, and listen back and be like, oh wow, I remember making this from there.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, bro.
And with that, I feel like we'll probably close it out.
Yeah, man, thanks.
That helped, and cheers.
Cheers, guys. See you in the next one.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to 4am Tunes TV for more podcasts, music, and behind-the-scenes content.